Hi everyone, I'd like to talk a bit about the new book Consciousness Beyond the Body. It's a really exciting new project that brings together a lot of household names in a way in terms of the out-of-body experience arena. People like Jürgen Ziever, myself, Anthony Peake, Robert Wagner, lots of really significant names in this kind of area. It's looking at the whole idea of non-local consciousness. It does mainly focus on the out-of-body experience, but there's also talk of lucid dreams and just non-local perception in general. In my chapter, which is chapter 7, I look at some of the key ideas around whether we can perceive things accurately while within an out-of-body experience. I think there's clear evidence that that is the case, that we can do that, and I discuss some of my own experiences that have been verified and confirmed by others. If you're interested, there's some other videos in my channel that cover that kind of subject. So I look at that kind of area and then bring it up to date with some of the research, looking at psychic abilities or psi abilities as they're called within the scientific world. And I look at whether there's any correlation, whether there's any crossover between those particular areas. And then within the book I also look at the idea of how visual perception might function. It's often assumed that visual awareness, that visual perception is exactly the same within an out-of-body experience as it is right now within optical vision, our normal everyday vision that we experience. And that to me seems a strange assumption, because we're obviously functioning in some kind of, either some kind of energy form, or we're functioning through some kind of extended awareness, extended consciousness. So either way, it's clear that vision must function in some other way. Either information is coming into the brain via some other means, or consciousness itself is not limited or not located within the physical brain. So all of those areas are really interesting, I think, and when we start to look at visual perception within the experience, we start to realize, hold on a minute, maybe this will give us clues, maybe this will help us understand more about how consciousness might work, and also about how psychic abilities might work, how visual perception might work. All of these areas, it gives us an understanding of what might be the next step. I also think it's important in terms of research, when we're trying to look at research about the out-of-body experience, how it takes place, how to get this kind of veridical information, because it doesn't happen every time you have an out-of-body experience. There are limitations to when we can perceive accurately and things like that. And I deal with that a bit in terms of how the vision works within the experience and what the limitations are, what the controllability limitations are, things like that. So I think that if we can bring this information together, and that's really what I'm currently working on with my own research, is looking at the phenomenology of the out-of-body experience, trying to create a language in a way of how the experience works, and then from that language we can design a protocol, we can design a system for researching and studying the experience in a more refined, precise way than has generally been done before. Having said that, as soon as I finished the chapter, a really interesting piece of research has just come out from Italy, which looks at the idea of whether perception can be accurate but within a laboratory controlled environment. And that's really important. That's really where the research needs to go more now. We've looked at prospective studies like Penny Sartori's and Pim van Lommel's, looking at near-death experiences and people having spontaneous experiences within a cardiac arrest or a medical type scenario. But now what we need to do is look more within the lab. That was done quite a lot in the 60s through to the 1980s, but for some reason it became less popular because other areas of psychical research were easier to control and also easier to set up as an experiment. So the research tended to move towards remote viewing or telepathy or precognition, those kinds of areas, which is great. I mean, the evidence now for all of those areas is also very, very strong. But what we also need is to look at the out-of-body experience within the laboratory context, and that's what I'm very excited about myself. What we've got now from this study in Italy is statistically significant evidence that people are able to perceive in an out-of-body experience. This particular study induced out-of-body experiences using hypnosis. These were people who were generally already able to have out-of-body experiences, and the hypnosis was used as an aid to facilitate them further in enabling them to get to that particular state. They then were tasked with trying to perceive particular targets or particular things while out of the body, and then this was assessed afterwards. The results showed that they could do this almost twice as much as would be expected by chance expectations, or if they were just guessing, essentially. So this is really important and significant research that also shows the existence of these kinds of experiences. So if you'd like to look at that study or read the new free book that's just been completed, there's links to the free book via my website, and there's also a link to the study I just mentioned. So if you like these kind of videos, if you want to keep hearing the kind of work that I'm doing and keep up with what I'm putting out there, then subscribe, like the video. I'm going to be making a lot more of these videos in the coming months, and I hope people will support the work I'm doing. Thanks a lot, and speak to you soon.